Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, and thank you for tuning back into St. Andrew TV, a cure for your Monday blues. I'm your host, Andrew, and today we are back in the, we'll say chuckwagon, because kitchen doesn't make too much sense, because we are doing another early frontier recipe. And that's exactly where this recipe comes from, is earlyfrontierrecipes.com. I even printed it out. I'm kind of a big deal. I own a printer. And if your eyes are quick enough, you will see we were making Cowboy Brown Biscuits off said website. I found with many recipes that anything with gluten in it is a major winner in my books. If I had celiac disease, I would cease to exist. However, I digress. If you follow me along in today's video, I will show you how to make Cowboy Brown Biscuits. So as we begin, I am going to read off the ingredients that you will need for this recipe. And it is a lengthy list, so bear that in mind if you would like to make this yourself at home, or if you're following this video along to make Cowboy Brown Biscuits at home with me. You are going to need 3 tablespoons each of flour and cornmeal, 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter, lard, or solid vegetable shortening, chilled and cut into pieces. And then finally, you will need 1.5 cups of buttermilk, which I have right there. So we will be going through all the steps that Early Frontier Recipes has for us. And with that being said, you should be preheating your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. If you preheat it to 425 degrees Celsius, you would probably set your home or your living situation on fire. So we start off by putting in our 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. I do apologize for this presentation. My bag ripped and I had to put it in a bigger bag to secure the contents. There's 1 cup, and 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. Try to get everything in the bowl. I do apologize because I think I skipped over this and you probably read it at the bottom of your screen while I was reading the ingredients. You also need 2 cups of whole wheat pastry flour, which this is what that is, but just a friendly reminder before you get too far into this, that's a pretty big ingredient. Anyway, we are adding 2 cups of that as well. 2 cups of whole wheat pastry flour. Next, we are adding our baking soda, baking powder, and our 1 teaspoon of salt. So as we do recall, we have 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. That's all right there. You can trust me or don't. Does not matter much to me. Now the next thing that this calls for is unsalted butter, shortening, lard, whatever. I have butter that is unsalted. What we are doing with that is we're introducing it to the dry ingredients. Now this is the part where we can use a blender if we so choose. It's called a pastry blender as they put it, or we can use, the historically accurate method and just put it in there and mix it up by hand. Now you will notice that it is at room temperature. Highly advise that you do that, otherwise the mixing portion of that will be an absolute nightmare. Now we are going to mix this, as the recipe does say, until there are no big clumps and it resembles big breadcrumbs. Now if the butter does get too soft on you, you can refrigerate it for a little bit to make sure, did you hear that? To make sure that the butter, hardens up a little bit more. So let's start moving everything around. Feels like sand. I hate sand.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. and it gets everywhere.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like sand. That is roughly what it should look like. It has the consistency of sand, so I would imagine that if you've ever felt sand before, this is what you're looking for. Feel it, feels like sand. I think you did a good job. That looks like breadcrumbs. The next thing that we are going to do is add our 1.5 cups of buttermilk, which I have right here. There's 1 cup, and there's a half. There is 1.5 cups, and now we are going to stir that with our mixture that we have recently completed. Now we are going to stir this until everything is combined with one another. The mixture should stiffen while you're stirring, and we, at the end of it, don't want it to be sticky, but it will look a little bit shaggy. Those are their words, not mine. This is the first time I'm making this as well, so I'm not entirely certain what that entails, but I guess I will use my context clues when we get there. Spoon ain't doing dick. It's time to get dirty. Does anybody else think that Apple Maps should be called Mapple? If I wind up dead because they want that idea, don't be shocked. So the next thing is you need a work surface, which mine is, and you need to put lights. You need to put a light amount of flour down so you can now knead your dough. I'm assuming this is what shaggy looks like. It's not too uniform, but it's not sticky, as you can see. Means I'm a toddler in a 31-year-old man's body. There's already flour on the table, so I don't need to prime my work surface yet. So I'm just gonna set it on the table like this, and we are just going to play with our dough. I know it's not Valentine's Day anymore, at least when you're watching this video, but when you talk to your Valentine, the card can read, "You're like dough, I need you." That's a good one. Like, they're gonna fall head over heels for that, or they're gonna call the authorities. They say, "How did you get in my home?" All right, I've kneaded this. It's said about 10 times, so we're good. Now we're going to pat it down and get it to, it says about 1.25 inches thick, all the way through. Reminder of anything that you bake or cook or what have you, that you want even consistency throughout whatever it is you're baking or cooking, because that ensures that it will bake or cook evenly. You're not going to have any spots that, cook faster or slower than any other part, and that's going to give you the best product, I would assume. I'm not too well versed in the culinary world, but I mean, that makes a good bit of sense, I'd imagine. This is about 1.25 inches thick, and now we are going to cut it into sections to put it on our, you could do a baking tray. They're calling for a baking tray with parchment paper on it, or you can grease it. I'm going to do it in cast iron to really hone in on, like, this is a trail food or like a homesteader food. So I'm going to get a greased pan of cast iron here, and then we'll cut it into these sections that are going to be baked into biscuits. So we're going to cut this up into even sections. It calls for 16 equal squares. However, we're not putting it on the parchment paper, we're putting it in there. Now, this is our greased pan. I have the squares, and I did this prior, but this is your greased pan. Now, what you do before you set your little squares into the pan itself, and I actually forgot to do this part originally, but you are going to take your flour and cornmeal mixture, which I have flour right there, and you're going to see a jump cut where the cornmeal is in there as well. And you do the same with the baking sheet as well. You sprinkle it with this little concoction of flour and cornmeal. So it's greased, and now it looks something like that. This is where you stick your little chunks of dough into, and you will bake at 425 for 15 to 18 minutes, or until golden brown. Now, it is a little tougher because I'm doing it in a cast iron to make like one big biscuit that you pull from, kind of, sorta. That's what it looks like. If it is on the baking sheet, whether that be with parchment paper or what we have here, they should be about 1/2 inch apart. But with that being said, I'm going to take this right here, I'm going to put it in the oven, and I will bring it out and we are going to taste test our final product. So that is what it's looking like when it's pulled out of the oven. Mine took a little bit longer to bake. Mine were closer on the 18 side, if not a little bit longer, but they came out all the same. They are golden brown, and those little fork marks are to test if they were done. So I'm going to pull one out here. They are piping hot, and we will give them a taste test. Now, before I do this taste test, I'm not sure, I'm sure that the biscuits were around, especially buttermilk, I'm assuming in the southern states. I don't know how much of a recipe this is for early frontier. It seems like biscuits are pretty universal. Maybe unsalted butter, or using maybe lard to cook these instead of like unsalted butter, which is closer. I have no concrete knowledge about vegetable shortening. I'm gonna level with you. That's something that if I had it, I was not aware I was having it. But regardless, Stagecoach Mary is on the side here, and she's a Wild West folk hero, so it's cowboy enough for me. Let's give this a try. I'm pretty happy with these. Like I said, if I feel bad for anybody with like a gluten allergy. Hey, my other ones are done, so more eats. Or celiac disease, because I love bread. Anything bread or baked goods, I'm here for. These are pretty damn good. Regardless if it's like a historical Wild West recipe, I did not do too much research on it. I was just looking up frontier recipes and I arrived at this website. It's still good eats. I'm gonna actually have some steak tonight, and this is gonna be my side dish. These are a winner today. I would say that the Cowboy Brown Biscuits, yeah, if you are if you're a fan of like good hearty food, I would imagine some gravy on top of this would be unreasonably delicious. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. I'm actually going to probably put butter on one of these after we're done here today and just scarf them down. Like I said, anything baked goods, it's GG's. Easy peasy, went down the old pipe. With that being said, I do appreciate everybody getting this far into the video. This was how to make Cowboy Brown Biscuits. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like or leave me a comment stating what you liked, or tell me what I should do next. I have a Patreon that is linked down in the description field below, or it should be appearing right in front of this cast iron right here. I do not take ads nor sponsorships on these videos, so you know that everything that you see in front of you is homegrown and grass-rooted. The money it took for me to purchase the ingredients for the Cowboy Brown Biscuits were out of the pockets of yours truly. I don't want influence on this channel unless it is influence from my community. I'm very community driven. So if you'd like to support the content further here on St. Andrew TV, please feel free to go over to the link and leave a donation. But feel no obligation to do so, as the content on YouTube will forever remain free, only if your means allow you. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed as of late, but for those of you who have come across this video or this channel and you're not subscribed, maybe because you like Wild West content, or maybe you saw me and wanted to make some baked goods today. Or maybe you're just back again to say, hey Andrew, I think you eat biscuits pretty weird as well. Think about hitting that subscribe button, because you're a daisy if you do.